Good, my people, my peeps. We're going to have a talk. Just a little discussion as I take this ride. So, a lot of us have awakened and come to find out that we are Israel. And so, on my journey of my awakening, coming to find out that I'm Israel, and I am still doing my study. Now, within doing my studies, most of it was online, especially when COVID hit. Everybody was shut down, in the house. Really couldn't go out, right? So a lot of studies was done online. So today's topic is going to be about the new hustle, wives and concubines. And I'm bringing this up because a lot of us have awoken to realize that we're Israel, men and women. And a lot of us have come out of churches and the spirit of the church. And as I'm furthering my studies, I'm realizing that some of the men that have come out of the churches and the spirit of the church is still on them, witness things in the church, such as the pastor of the church sleeping with most of the women in the church, because most of the women in the church were single or their husbands in the church. So the pastor had full reign. And a lot of these dirty deeds started to come out. So we all have heard of these stories. And so a lot of the spirit is on some of the men that have awoken and realized that they are Israel. Or some of these men are still battling with lust and women, with the lust demon. As I'm sitting here thinking about wives and concubines, that hit me. Some of these men in some of the camps that I've watched trying to get understanding, and I realized that some of their teachings are off. For instance, I watched a camp where the leader was saying that it's okay to sleep with 12-year-olds. As long as they have had their period, it's okay to sleep with 12-year-olds in this day and time, meaning breaking the law of the land. When we know, even in the scriptures, it tells us that in your captivity, you got to keep the laws of the land. I'm like, okay, that's first of all, it's sick, it's perverted, and you're gonna have people winding up in jail, basically. Almost got pulled into thinking that's okay. Now, for some, it may be, and let me say, for some, it may be, because other countries they do have more than one wife, but these people in other countries normally are men with a lot of money, rich men. Just like in the Bible, it was kings that had this concubines and their wives. So now you hear people preaching about concubines and wives right now today, and having, many wives and concubines here in the land of our captivity. Men that are not kings here, present day time, and can barely sustain themselves, take care of themselves. So they're implementing a practice in the Bible, having concubines and wives, because they can take care of them. You see, when they're teaching a man can have concubines and wives, they're not. teaching the man that they have to provide, that key word, provide, for these wives and concubines, home, raiment, food, substance. No, I have yet to hear a leader teach that these men, if they're going to have these wives and concubines, provide homes and not apartments where all the wives are in one apartment. All the wives are stuck in one home. You see, because that's not how it was in biblical times. Even when they were traveling, they had their own quarters. Now the wives aspect, they say, you get many wives so you can build a nation. I get that. But when they're teaching that, they're teaching it more on an aspect of, they say it's not about sex, but to me, more and more, I'm thinking that it is more about sex for the man than building a nation. Because if you're going to have wives, then biblically, the wives had handmaids. Because you're saying the wife, should be subservient in the kitchen, helping prepare food, helping keep the house in order. But I don't hear any of them talk about the handmaids that their wives have to help them keep the house in order. Not the concubines, but the handmaids. You see, and let me give you a for instance. Sarah and Father Abraham, they didn't have children for a long time. And Sarah wanted a child. So what did Sarah do? She offered her handmaid. It wasn't, she wasn't a concubine at that time. She was a handmaid to Sarah. So Sarah had her own handmaid to help her as a wife, to help her sustain the home. When she offered her handmaid over to her husband so that she could have a baby through her handmaid. I'm starting to see more and more men who are using this practice just to have a stable of women, just a stable of women, not to actually build a nation, but to just have a stable of women to hop to and fro with. Leaders to have women and not be, in this day and time, accused of cheating, like men in the church were accused of cheating on their wives, the pastors in the church, because they were sleeping with the congregation. Now you can have leaders that are sleeping with the congregation, but they can say, well, that's my wife. That's my wife, and there will be nothing said. Is it really about building a nation, or is this the new hustle? That's my question. Is it the new hustle? The new hustle of pimping out our sisters, the daughters of Zion, with this wives and concubines, and half the men that don't even have a 9 to 5 job, hollering about they got wives and concubines. Is it the new hustle? So as I'm driving, I was thinking along those lines, because the devil is truly busy out here, and there are people that are broken out in the world seeking to find the answers to life, basically the answers to who they are, and if they're awakening and realizing that they're Israel, and then they fall into this new hustle about wives and concubines, and then they're in a home or an apartment with 3 or 4 women. It just makes me think of a stable of women, like the pimp game, you know. And then men try to use that pimp philosophy, but using it with the Bible in tow. Well, in the Bible, yes, King David had wives and concubines. The key word here is King David, King Solomon. That is the key word. They were able to provide for their wives and concubines, not cluster them all in one home, in one facility. Their wives in the Bible had handmaids to help them, to dress them, whatever the handmaids were to do. So that's just a question. Not a question, maybe a thought I had. Is this the new hustle? The wives and concubines. I Why? Well, why? Like your wife. Is that what you're asking me? Can I define wife? Um, well, if I'm defining wife here in our present time, is your one singular wife, the singular wife. You get married, it's a husband and a wife. Wives are you have many wives, and there's no number to the wives that you would have. I mean, King Solomon had, oh gosh, I can't even remember. He had many wives. I think past the hundreds of wives. You see, so. But you also have to realize King Solomon was wealthy. He was a king. He could afford to have all these wives, put them in their own uh, dwelling, their own service. You don't have men in this day and time that can put these many women in homes. They barely have their own home to live in. And this is not to be funny or put anybody down. It's the truth. It's the truth. They barely have their own home to live in, but they're being told that they can have wives and concubines, and they're not able to take care of themselves. And even if somebody is to say, well, if you can't sustain yourself, don't, get wives. But this is not. I've seen men on platforms talking about wives and concubines delivering pizzas. You get what I'm saying? Instead of really understanding that kings had wives and concubines. Kings. And when kings have wives, you see, wives were used as a business transaction in the Bible. That's what it is. Here, in this day and time, there's really no business transaction because you're not getting anything from the father. And when the wife was given over to the king, there was a business transaction. They're not just used as pawns, you see, as tradable sex objects that I see is going around here in this day and time. Because a lot of women here don't have riches from their fathers, don't have dowry. You see what I'm saying? Don't have land that their father is receiving so much land, so many soldiers to keep their help with their lineage. You know, where's the trade-off here? Talking about that, there was a trade-off because it was a business transaction. They were going to war, and one tribe was weaker than the other. It was a business transaction. You marry my daughter, we're now family. Our kingdom is now larger. You have this land across the river of Jordan, whatever. You see what I'm saying? It's not making sense to me. It's not making sense teaching that in this day and time. It's not just that the woman is. I don't know what you're teaching the woman, really, because I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything from any leaders about what you're teaching the woman in this transaction, in this day and time. Just to be a wife? Have you sustained her family? Did you even go to her father? What did you offer her father for your wife? If she even had a father, even if she didn't have a father, if she had a mother, did you sustain her mother? You see what I'm saying? It's not about just saying, I want this wife. This is now my wife. It's a business transaction. And in business, it's never a win-lose situation. In business, again, it's never a win-lose situation, meaning the man is winning by gaining a wife, gaining the ability to build a nation because now he has a wife. In the wife situation in this day and time, the wife, the wife, the wife. Okay, you see what has this man in this day and time offered the wife's family to help with this business or to engage in this business transaction? What has this man in this day and time, 2020, offered this woman's family to engage in a business transaction to help build the nation if that is the true case? I guarantee I could put money on it, and that transaction never happened because it seems to be the new hustle. And then the men are told that you can put the wife away. That's the ultimate hustle. You've done a business transaction that is used in biblical time. So now, if you're in this day and time, it's the man, he's got a wife and has not offered any business, any money, any land, any home to engage in this business transaction. After he's done with the wife, if he gets fed up with the wife, he can put her away. I need somebody to make this make sense in this day and time. Or is it just the new hustle? There's a benefit to having a wife. Yeah. There's truly a benefit to having a wife. You hear that, a lot of the men talk about the wife taking care of the home and things of that nature. I would love for those men to talk about the handmaiden that they have for their wives. And if you say we're in this day and time, well, what maid service have you hired to help give to your wife as part of that business transaction, you see. Because biblically, they had handmaids that they could tell what to do, how to do it, how to help run the home. So these men who have these wives, do you have documentation to show that you provided maid services to help your wife take care of the home, the children? Or is your wife doing it all on her own? Because that's not how it happened biblically. There's so many testimonies to that. And I just gave you one previously with Sarah offering her handmaid to her husband so that she can have a baby. And she didn't have any children, you see, at that time. So she was the wife taking care of the home who had a handmaiden still. Or are we just saying that we're building a nation and having women in a bondage situation instead of really a loving situation that's based off of a business transaction, but no one in business, if you're doing good business with someone, should be on the losing end. These concubines, let's get into it. These concubines, how are you having concubines in the end time? Are you sending these women straight to hell? Are you sexing and sending these women straight to hell? A concubine in 2020, when fornication is a sin that you will be judged for, and you're sending them straight to hell because they're not married to you. They're your concubine. That you're going to call them your concubine in 2020, 2022. Sorry. How is that possible? You're sentencing people to hell now because one of the commandments is not to fornicate. The woman will be fornicating because she's your concubine now in this day and time. Somebody please answer, give me the answer to that. How are you not sentencing women to hell because you want to say, well, I have wives, but I want you to be a part of my team, basically. You'll be my concubine. How is that not her fornicating? Because, see, the Bible recognized King David, King Solomon, all of these kings, their wealth, their ability to take care of their wives, their concubines. How are you facilitating the kingdom for these women, these concubines that you're having? Are you just using them for sex while they're here to be pleasure, aid you in your pleasure? But sending them straight to hell once everything's said and done. I need answers. I haven't heard any answers. And I don't think women actually ask these questions because they want to be a part of something. Like I said, it's a lot of hurt men and women out here. It's a lot of hurt men and women out here. But you're going to hurt more people by sending them to hell just so you can get your rocks off? That's what I want. Nobody has answered that question. I see many of teachings about concubines.
Hold on, y'all. Sorry about that. I see many teachings about concubines, but how are you saving their souls, sirs? These women that are your so-called concubines. Hold on one moment. If it's not the new hustle. Oh, shoot. If this is not considered a hustle, how are you saving their souls? And I'm referring to the concubines here. Hold on for a minute. Hold on, I have to pray real quick. Y'all see right there? How are you saving their souls? That's the question about the concubines. You sex them up down here. They may even have babies by you. Being that they're your concubines, what are their provisions? Especially if you can put a wife away, what the hell can you do to a concubine? And being that we are in the land of our captivity, how are they protected? Because you're going to have some wicked men that are not going to protect the women that they're going to use and abuse. Why is that done? Yes, women. Hold on. Just trying to read your comment. How are these men getting these wives? Because they're preaching. A lot of these men have awakened, like I have, and have been taught by different various camps, individuals, who they are, first of all, as Israel, as being the chosen one. And then they're learning, the biblical practices in the Bible, and yes. Kings did have wives and concubines, but it was kings that were able to provide homes, raiment, their clothes, their substance, and their concubines, their raiment, their substance. But I'm only hearing from these camps one-sided teaching. And it's basically that about the men having the wives and the concubines, but they're not teaching that these wives had handmaids to help sustain and take care of these homes, these castles that they were in, or whatever, or tents, their tabernacles. They had homes of their own, their tents of their own, their handmaids of their own. They just weren't birthing children and doing it all on their own while their husbands kept going and having more wives and having more children. No, they had handmaids helping. But you don't hear that in this day and time, because I guarantee most of these men are not providing maid services. to help come in and help clean up the house, help take care of the children. No, you can imagine that wife is doing it all and thinking that is exactly how it happens biblically. No. If you read the Bible, no. They had handmaids to help in the home. The wife wasn't some sort of woman in bondage, so to speak. No. They lived lavish too. It was a business deal. But my concern, if the wife is put away in this day and time, because I'm not fully understanding the biblical contract of a marriage, how they can be destroyed even more, mentally, physically, because a new hustle is here, and they're using the Bible as the new hustle game for their own lustful spirit that they have. They're using a new hustle game. Because I have yet to understand, or yet to hear somebody say how the Most High God has told us not to fornicate. But I hear men on different platforms talking about they have concubines. How is the woman not going to be considered in the Most High God's eyes in 2022 as fornicating with these men? Or, well, it'll be probably the one man that's saying that she's his concubine. How is that not fornicating? Did anybody answer that question? I don't know if anybody answered that question. Good morning, good morning. I don't think anyone answered that. Is that fornicating? Will you burn in hell for fornication? Let me tell you, a lot of people say that sin has there's no different levels to sinning. Yes, there is. Oh, yes, there is. Sinning against the body is the worst sin. To sin against your body, meaning to be out here sexing everybody, lusting, fornicating, being adulterous against your body, that is the worst sin. So, if you have men on platforms saying that you can have concubines in this day and time, how is that balancing, or how is it neutralizing the law that says fornication is a sin? You have women in 2022 that are not your wife, so they're fornicating. So you're having them commit the worst sin possible on their body and their soul to be condemned to hell. Is it that serious? I mean, is it that serious for these men on these platforms talking about concubines? Is that serious that you will condemn somebody to hell because they don't know the full understanding of the law? Because it's about sex? Because you're not building a nation with the concubine. If you have 4 to 5 wives already, why wouldn't you make her your wife? Why in this day and time would you need a concubine? No, you want that side chick on the side. Instead of calling her a side chick, you want to give her a biblical name and call her a concubine. And commit her soul to the everlasting fire. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, men, because it's the men on these platforms that are pushing that doctrine about having concubines. In 2022, that as if you would need a concubine. I doubt that you need a concubine. I doubt that you need 10 to 20 wives, really. Do you have 10 to 20 homes that these wives are in? Do you have 10 to 20 handmaids and servants for your wives? Somebody. Let me know. Because that's how it went down in the Bible. God is about order. The Most High God is about order. I see no order in this new hustle. And that's what it is, in my eyes. A new hustle. Yes, it's lust. Lust has taken over. Hello. But a lot of these men and leaders don't actually want to deal with the lust demons that they battle. You see, with a demon, you don't get it cast out, or if you truly are not trying to fight that demon day by day by sustaining from your fornications and your lust and your adulteries and your, I don't know, masturbation, pornography consumption, you're not fighting that demon, you're aiding the demon. And if you're in leadership role, that demon is jumping into your congregation. That demon is jumping all off into your congregation. So then you have branches of your congregation talking about, it doesn't matter how many wives you have and concubines, condemning these women to everlasting fire. Because let me tell you, women in the church are no different than some of these women that follow a lot of these people on their platforms. Even in society, men of esteem, renown, women tend to flock to them. They tend to want to be with them in relationships. That's why you have women in the church sleeping with the pastor. You have that with people who have these platforms out here as well. There are women that are on their platform want to have or may have desires to be with those men. You see what I'm saying? So they could be easily led astray. And that lust demon is ravening their congregation and the people in it. The new hustle is real. Women, ladies, ask yourself, doing business, you have to be business-minded. Ask yourself, is the contract fair? Is the contract fair? If you're going to engage in a business transaction, and like I said, marriage is definitely a business transaction. Read the fine print make sure the contract is fair? Will you have a house? Will you have handmaids and servants? Since we're going to live like the biblical kings and queens did, our princesses did, will you have those things in this contract of marriage? Or will your family be provided land? Have they gone to your father and asked your father for your hand in marriage, if your father's still alive or in your life? If not, your mother. Due respect. Have they shown due respect to honor a contract that they want to engage in with you? Ask yourself these things. Single lady, whether you are being offered a contract regarding marriage or someone wants to suggest being a concubine, ask yourself, is it worth your soul? Because the ultimate sin is sinning against your body, fornication. Ask yourself, is it worth your soul to burn in that everlasting fire for the short period of time that you have here? We're going to make it plain and clear about marriage. Concubines in the Bible. Let's truly make it plain and clear. It is a business contract, and in business, don't be a bad business partner, okay? Don't do it. Understand women, that you're just not here as to fulfill people's lust. Most High God has an order to everything. Even in heaven, which will be the renewing of this planet, the Most High God will have order. Yes. We all know that there'll be more men will have wives, but we all know that the wives will have their own homes, land, servants. So if that's going to be the order in heaven, and if that was the order in the Bible, mostly in the New Testament, why are you all, as leaders, as people with platforms, not teaching that order or practicing that order when you speak on having more than one wife? Speak to the women and let the women know what a good contract should look like. And I'm out, and much love.